They thought seating me next to the gift table would remind me of my place, stacking envelopes behind my chair like a cardboard altar to their importance. To my parents, I was not a daughter tonight. I was inventory control. But they did not notice my laptop bag under the table, holding documents that could turn this celebration into a hostile takeover. By the time they raised their champagne glasses, their fate was already sealed. My name is Harper Bell, and tonight I am invisible. The air inside the main banquet hall of Maple Crest Manor is thick with the scent of expensive lilies, slow-roasted beef, and the heavy, cloying perfume of desperation. Above me, string lights drape from the exposed rustic beams like necklaces of liquid gold, casting a hazy, flattering filter over the room. A 12-piece live band is playing a soft, jazz-inflected cover of a love song that was popular before I was born, the bass notes vibrating gently through the floorboards. In the center of the dance floor, bathed in the spotlight, stand my parents, Greg and Carol. They look like minor royalty holding court at their own coronation. My father is shaking hands with a fervor that borders on manic, while my mother tilts her head back to laugh at a joke I know she does not find funny, the sequins on her silver gown catching the light like jagged shards of glass. It is their 35th anniversary gala, a testament to their enduring love, or perhaps just their enduring ability to keep up appearances when the credit card bills are due. I am not standing with them. I am not circulating through the crowd with a crystal flute of champagne, accepting compliments on my dress or making polite conversation about the unseasonably warm weather. I am seated at a narrow, wobbling folding table pushed aggressively into the corner, directly beside the gift station. To my left, a tower of ribboned boxes threatens to topple over with every vibration of the bass guitar. To my right, a tacky plastic money box shaped like a 3-tiered wedding cake sits open and hungry. In front of me, a tablet glows with a color-coded spreadsheet. I am squeezed between the inventory and the wall, dressed in a sharp black blazer that screams corporate executioner. Yet everyone here treats me like I am the hired help checking coats. It is a biting, familiar observation, one that settles in my chest like heartburn. In the Bell family economy, there are only 2 distinct roles available. You are either the decoration in the photograph, shining and useless and celebrated, or you are the utility behind the scenes, the load-bearing beam that keeps the structure from collapsing but gets covered up with drywall so no one has to look at it. I have never been the decoration. I have always been the utility. Relatives drift past my station, a parade of familiar faces slightly distorted by the open bar. Aunt Linda, whose own finances are a disaster she refuses to acknowledge, leans over the table and drops a thick, cream-colored envelope onto the pile. She does not look me in the eye. She looks at the box. "Oh, Harper, you are such a dear for handling this," she coos, her voice pitched high and fake. "Make sure Greg and Carol get this one right away." "Okay, it is generous. I will make sure it is logged." "Aunt Linda," I say. My voice is professional, detached. I tap the screen of my tablet, entering her name into the database I created an hour ago. She pats my shoulder, a gesture reserved for golden retrievers and unpaid volunteers, and drifts away toward the bar without waiting for a response. Another cousin, one I have not spoken to in 5 years, slides a card across the tablecloth and gives me a thumbs up. "Thanks for manning the fort. Harp, better you than me, right?" They thank me for helping with the gift table, as if I am a teenager trying to earn allowance money, or a distant cousin doing penance. They do not ask why the eldest daughter of the couple is sitting alone in a corner. They do not ask why I am not holding a drink. They simply accept that this is my natural habitat adjacent to the money, but not allowed to enjoy it. Across the room, my younger brother, Ethan, is holding a Jeroboam of champagne like it is the Stanley Cup. A flashbulb pops, then another. He throws his head back, laughing at something a bridesmaid says, his teeth blindingly white and perfect teeth that I paid for when our parents forgot to pay the orthodontist bill 10 years ago. He is wearing a tuxedo that cost more than $2,000. I know this because the invoice is currently filed in the pending payments folder on my laptop, hidden beneath the white polyester tablecloth. He looks the part of the heir apparent. He glows. He consumes. I sit. I account. A shadow falls over my spreadsheet, blocking the ambient light. I look up to see my mother, Carol, sweeping past. She pauses, not to ask if I need a drink, not to ask if I've eaten, but to reach out and aggressively smooth a wrinkle in the linen on a nearby cocktail table. She finally glances at me, her eyes scanning my face not for affection, but for flaws. "Smile, honey," she hisses through her teeth, her face fixed in a permanent, photo-ready rictus. "You look miserable. You are in the background of the photos." She gestures vaguely toward the photographer framing a shot of a second cousin near the cake. I am purely aesthetic collateral damage to her. I am a smudge on the lens. "We wouldn't want to ruin the aesthetic," I reply, my voice low and steady. She does not hear me, or she chooses not to. She leans in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, the way people talk to staff they do not want to be overheard by. "Harper, make sure no one walks off with the envelopes. You know how people get after a few drinks. Keep a count." "I am counting everything, Mother," I say. "Every single penny. Good girl." She straightens up, satisfied, and floats away before I can respond. Before I can point out that the catering staff she is so suspicious of has more integrity in their little fingers than she has in her entire sequin-clad body. She returns to the center of the room, linking arms with my father. The picture of maternal grace. I shift in my hard metal chair, and the movement causes the lapel of my blazer to gap slightly. Beneath the fabric, clipped securely to the silk lining, is the matte black head of a small wireless microphone. It is live. It is connected to the venue's sound system, currently muted at the main board, but I have the override code memorized. I spent 20 minutes earlier today syncing it while the audio technicians were on their lunch break. I slide my hand under the table, brushing against my leather laptop bag. Inside, there are no party favors. There are no sentimental scrapbooks. There are 3 heavy folders, color-coded and terrifyingly precise. One is labeled Deed, one is labeled Management Agreement, the third is labeled Payment History. They sit there like loaded weapons. My parents think I am here for envelope duty. They think I am the dutiful daughter, the family wallet, the quiet fix-it girl who cleans up the messes so the stars can keep shining. They think I am here to guard their pile of gift cards and checks. They are wrong. I am not here to facilitate a party. I am here to facilitate a hostile takeover. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC's voice booms over the speakers, slick and radio-friendly, cutting through the chatter. "We have a very special family announcement coming up a little later in the evening, so do not go anywhere. But first, let us hear it for the happy couple." Applause ripples through the room, polite at first, then enthusiastic as the alcohol kicks in. My father raises his champagne flute high. He does not look at my mother. He looks across the room, locking eyes with Ethan. He winks. It is a heavy, loaded gesture, one that makes the whole room murmur. The gossip is practically tangible, thickening the air like humidity. Everyone knows or thinks they know what is coming, the passing of the torch, the crowning of the prince. I watch Ethan at the far end of the hall. He has stepped away from his admirers and is standing near the emergency exit, practicing. I can see his lips moving. He is mouthing words to himself, rehearsing the lines he thinks he came up with. Legacy, honor, future. He checks his reflection in the darkened window, adjusting his bow tie, puffing out his chest. He looks confident. He looks like a man who has never paid a mortgage in his life. A man who believes the world is a vending machine that dispenses rewards just because he is standing in front of it. A cold sensation washes over me. It is not fear. It is not sadness. It is the same icy mathematical calm I feel right before I close a high-stakes acquisition deal at my firm in the city. It is the feeling of knowing the numbers when the person across the table is just guessing. It is the feeling of holding the ace when everyone else is bluffing with a pair of twos. I watch my brother rehearse his victory lap, and I feel nothing but a sharp, crystalline clarity. My father steps up to the microphone stand in the center of the floor. He taps the mic thump, thump silencing the crowd. The jazz band fades out. The room turns to him, a sea of expectant faces bathed in warm light. He clears his throat, preparing to weave a fairy tale about hard work, sacrifice, and family values. I look down at my tablet. The spreadsheet shows a negative balance in their personal accounts that is 6 figures deep. 3 months ago, this building, this legacy, they are so eager to gift to my brother, was 7 days away from a sheriff's auction. The bank had already sent the final notice. The locks were about to be changed. The only reason the lights are on, the only reason the champagne is flowing, the only reason there is a roof over their heads to celebrate under, is the woman they just seated next to the gift table like a servant. They are about to make a speech about their surprise for Ethan. They have no idea the surprise is theirs. To understand how a 32-year-old woman ends up seated next to the inventory at her parents' anniversary party, you have to understand the specific, suffocating architecture of the house I grew up in. It was a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a subdivision that was always trying too hard. The kind of place where the grass was dyed greener in the summer and the cars in the driveways were always leased, never owned. Inside those walls, money was a ghost, terrifying, invisible, and constantly rattling the chains in the attic. We never spoke about it directly, yet it dictated the temperature of every room. In the Bell household, appearances were not just a priority, they were a religion, and my parents were its most devout zealots. There was a distinct, unspoken hierarchy to our family needs. My brother Ethan, 5 years my junior, was the golden calf, the investment vehicle my parents were betting their emotional retirement on. For Ethan, the checkbook was always magically open. When he made the varsity baseball team, there was suddenly money for a $300 bat and a brand new uniform because, as my father would say, you have to look the part to get the scouts' attention. When he needed a tutor because he was failing algebra, the funds appeared from thin air. But for me, the economy was strictly recession era. I wore dresses borrowed from cousins who were 2 sizes smaller than me, the fabric pinching my ribs as I smiled for church photos. I learned to walk softly so I would not wear out the soles of my shoes too quickly. I learned that my needs were negotiable, while the family image was fixed in stone. I remember being 16 years old, working the closing shift at a diner called the Rusty Spoon. I smelled permanently of stale coffee and fryer grease. My hands were always burned from the heat lamps, and my feet throbbed in cheap, non-slip shoes. One Friday night, my parents came in with Ethan and my aunt and uncle to celebrate Ethan winning a regional debate trophy. They sat in my section. I served them hamburgers and milkshakes, refilling their sodas while my father loudly bragged to my uncle about Ethan's intellect, about how he was destined for the Ivy League, about how the Bell name was finally going to mean something. He never introduced me to the table as his daughter. I was just the waitress who happened to look familiar. That night, I went home with $40 in tips stuffed into my apron pocket. I found the disconnection notice from the power company on the kitchen counter, buried under a stack of Ethan's Sports Illustrated magazines. I did not say a word. I did not make a scene. I simply walked to the grocery store the next morning, bought a money order, and mailed it to the electric company. When the lights stayed on that month, my parents did not notice. They assumed the world was just naturally accommodating to them. They never knew that the electricity powering their television was paid for by the hamburgers I flipped while they ignored me. The first time my soul truly broke, I was 18. I had been accepted to a prestigious university 3 states away, a school with a journalism program I had been dreaming about since I learned to read. I had a partial scholarship, enough to make it possible if I worked part-time. I remember placing the acceptance letter on the dining table, the heavy cream paper feeling like a ticket to freedom. My mother looked at it, then looked at me, her eyes welling up with those weaponized tears she could summon on command. "We are so proud of you, Harper," she had said, her voice trembling. "But with the mortgage adjusting this year, And your father's hours being cut, we just need a little help. Just for a year or two, if you go away. We cannot afford the house. You wouldn't want us to lose the family home, would you? It was not a question. It was a hostage negotiation. So, I tore up the acceptance letter. I stayed. I enrolled in the local state college, commuting 40 minutes each way in a sedan that broke down every time it rained, and I handed over half my paycheck from the diner every 2 weeks to help with the household. I watched my friends leave for Boston and Chicago and New York, posting photos of dorm rooms and late-night pizza runs, while I sat at the kitchen table balancing my parents' checkbook because my father said the math gave him a headache. That was when the pattern started. That was when I began managing the gift table, at cousins' weddings, at aunts' 50th birthday parties, at retirement dinners. I was always the one pulled away from the kids' table or the dance floor. "Harper, honey, go help your father with the checks," my mother would whisper, steering me toward the pile of envelopes. "You are so organized. We do not want anything to get lost." I would sit there, 17 or 18 or 20 years old, slicing open envelopes with a butter knife, stacking cash, tallying checks, creating lists of who gave what. I learned the texture of money that did not belong to me. I learned that in my family, proximity to wealth was the closest I would ever get to owning it. I was the bank teller, never the customer. I watched my relatives dance and drink and laugh, while I guarded the cardboard box, ensuring that my parents' social capital was properly documented. It taught me a cold, hard lesson. Money closest to my hands was never actually mine. It was just passing through, on its way to solve a problem I did not create. In this family, love was not a feeling. It was a bill that arrived every month. It had gratitude printed in the memo line. But if you missed a payment, if you failed to solve a crisis, if you set a boundary, if you kept something for yourself, the interest accrued immediately. The penalty fees were guilt and silence. After college, I clawed my way into a junior analyst position at Stonebridge Equity Group. I treated that job like a life raft in a hurricane. I worked 80-hour weeks, sleeping under my desk, eating vending machine dinners, obsessing over spreadsheets until my eyes burned. I became ruthless with numbers because numbers, unlike parents, did not lie. Numbers did not gaslight you. If a column didn't balance, there was a reason, and you could fix it. As my salary grew, so did my parents' emergencies. It started small, a car repair here, a dental crown there, then it became structural. I remember a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon, right before a massive client presentation. My father was on the line, sounding breathless and panicked. The bank was threatening to repossess his truck, the truck he needed to maintain his image for his contracting business. He needed $4,000 by 5 o'clock. I wired the money. I walked into my meeting, closed a deal worth $2 million, and then went to the bathroom and dry heaved into the sink. Every bailout came with a ritual. They would invite me over for dinner, usually a pot roast that was slightly dry, and we would perform the ceremony of gratitude. My father would pour cheap wine and make a toast to Harper, the rock of this family. My mother would squeeze my hand and tell me how lucky they were to have a daughter who was so capable, but the compliments always had a jagged edge. "It is so good you have this career," my mother would say, spooning potatoes onto my plate. "Since you do not have you do not have the distraction of a husband or children yet. You can focus on work. It is a blessing, really." The implication was clear. My money was the compensation prize for my failure as a woman. I was useful because I was unlovable. They did not see the 80-hour weeks as ambition. They saw them as the only option for a lonely spinster who had nothing better to do than write checks to her parents. "Family comes first," they would remind me, usually right after I mentioned I was too tired to drive over on a Sunday to fix their Wi-Fi or look at a leaking pipe. Meanwhile, Ethan glided through life on a frictionless track grease-lined with my sacrifices. He went to grad school for a degree in sports management that he never used. He met Ashley, a girl with expensive taste and a smile that did not reach her eyes. When they decided to get married, they wanted a destination wedding in Cabo San Lucas, my parents, who had $0 in their savings account, announced they were handling it. I paid for it. Of course I paid for it. I paid for the flights. I paid for the villa. I paid for the open bar where my father got drunk and told everyone that the Bells know how to throw a party. I was listed in the wedding program as maid of honor, but I spent the entire reception in the hotel business center, dealing with a vendor dispute because the credit card on file, my credit card, had been flagged for unusual activity due to the sheer volume of champagne being ordered. I remember sitting in that sterile, air-conditioned room, listening to the muffled bass of the wedding band through the wall. I looked at the spreadsheet on my laptop screen. I could list every single loan number my parents had. I knew the interest rate on their credit cards, down to the decimal point. I knew the exact date their car insurance expired. I knew the balance of their underwater mortgage better than I knew my own blood type. But as I sat there, listening to them celebrate the generosity of the family, I realized something that made my blood run cold. I could not remember the last time my mother or father had asked me a question about myself that wasn't a prelude to a request. They didn't know the name of my boss. They didn't know I had been promoted to senior VP. They didn't know I had dated a surgeon for 6 months and had my heart broken, because I never told them. Knowing they would somehow make it about how I wasn't focusing enough on them, they didn't know how I slept, what I feared, or what I dreamed of. I closed my laptop that night in Cabo, but I didn't cry. I think I had run out of tears years ago. Somewhere between the diner shift and the first mortgage payment I made on their behalf, I just stared at the wall and accepted the brutal truth of my existence. They didn't raise a daughter. They raised a line of credit with feelings. And lines of credit do not get seats at the head table. They get used until they are maxed out, and then they are discarded. But what they forgot, what they failed to calculate in their endless taking, is that even the most generous line of credit has a limit. And as I sat there, listening to them toast Ethan's bright future on my dime, I knew I had finally reached mine. The truth arrived on a Tuesday evening, innocuous and silent, disguised as a technological error. I was sitting on my living room sofa, the only furniture in my apartment that I allowed myself to relax on, with a glass of Pinot Noir and a stack of acquisition reports for work. My laptop sat open on the coffee table, the screen dimming as it idled. Then, a notification banner slid across the top right corner. It was an email from carolbell1965AOL.com. My mother still used the same email provider she had signed up for in the late 90s, a digital relic that she refused to abandon. The subject line read, FW draft for the big night. Review ASAP. My stomach gave a small, instinctive lurch. Usually, emails from my mother were demands masquerading as updates, links to expensive kitchen appliances she thought looked nice, or passive-aggressive articles about why women over 30 should freeze their eggs. But this subject line was different. It felt urgent, and it was a forward. I clicked the notification. The body of the email was short, typed in a large, purple Comic Sans font that my mother thought looked friendly. It was addressed to Ethan and cousin Mia, the daughter of her sister, a woman who had always been privy to the family gossip I was excluded from. But my mother, in her haste, or perhaps due to her deteriorating eyesight, had included me on the recipient line. It was a classic reply-all blunder, the kind that ends careers in the corporate world. In the Bell family, it was about to end a delusion. The message read, "Here is the final draft for the announcement. Dad and I think this covers everything. We will do the big reveal right after the cake. It is finally time to put Maple Crest Manor in the right hands. Do not worry about the legal jargon. We will let Harper help with the paperwork on the night of the party, since she is good with numbers anyway. She will sign off as the witness, and then it is done. The legacy stays with the name. Love, Mom." I read the paragraph 3 times. The wine in my glass suddenly looked like blood. Put Maple Crest Manor in the right hands. Let Harper help with the paperwork. She is good with numbers anyway. Attached to the email was a PDF file named Transfer Agreement Draft V4. PDF. My hand hovered over the trackpad. I felt a strange, vibrating tension in my fingertips, the kind of physiological warning system that triggers when you hear a noise in a dark house. I opened the attachment. It was a scanned document, slightly crooked, likely photographed with a phone and converted to a PDF. It was a crude, cut-and-paste legal template, probably downloaded from one of those free legal advice websites. The title at the top was bold and centered, Family Asset Transfer and Management Agreement. I began to read, my eyes scanning the clauses with the efficiency of a predator. The document outlined a plan for Greg and Carol Bell to transfer all management rights, operational control, and net future profits of the property known as Maple Crest Manor to Ethan Bell. Effective immediately upon the date of the 35th anniversary party, it detailed a salary for Ethan that was higher than what I made in my first 3 years of finance. It included a clause that gave him final say on all renovations, vendor contracts, and event bookings. But the kicker, the part that made the air leave my lungs in a sharp hiss, was the section on the final page. It was a signature block for a witness and advisory party. Under the blank line, typed in small, unassuming letters, was my name, Harper Bell. The document was designed to look like a standard estate planning formality. To the untrained eye, it was just parents passing a business to their son. It relied on two very specific assumptions. The first was that I would be so desperate for their approval, so eager to be included in the inner circle, even as a servant, that I would sign whatever they put in front of me without reading the fine print. They were banking on my history of blind obedience, on the decade I spent silently fixing their mistakes. The second assumption was far more fatal. They assumed they actually owned the property they were giving away. I set my wine glass down on the coaster with a heavy clink. I leaned back against the cushions and stared at the ceiling, a dry, humorless laugh bubbling up in my throat. It was not a laugh of joy. It was the sound of a guillotine blade dropping. My parents had forgotten. Or perhaps they had rewritten history in their heads so thoroughly that they actually believed their own lie. I let my mind drift back to a rainy Tuesday 2 years ago. The memory was high definition, sharp and cold. Maple Crest Manor had been bleeding money. My father had leveraged the equity to pay for a failed contracting venture, and my mother had spent the operating capital on aesthetic upgrades that brought in no revenue. The bank had called the loan. Foreclosure was not a threat. It was a scheduled event. They had called me, hysterical. They were going to lose everything. The embarrassment would kill them, they said. The shame would be unbearable. I had sat in their living room, looking at the piles of red-letter notices, and I had offered them a solution. I told them I would take care of it, and I did, but I did not give them a loan. I knew better by then. I knew that giving Greg and Carol Bell cash was like pouring water into a bucket with no bottom. Instead, I formed a limited liability company called Harbor Lane Holdings. I used my own savings and a private loan to buy the debt from the bank. I paid off the arrears, and in exchange, I had my parents sign a debt restructuring and deed in lieu of foreclosure agreement. I remembered the meeting at the notary's office. It was a small room that smelled of stale peppermint and toner ink. My father had been agitated, complaining about the traffic, checking his watch. My mother had been crying softly about how stressful this all was for her. I had pushed the stack of documents across the table. "This settles the debt with the bank," I had told them. "It stops the auction. You stay in the house. The venue keeps running. Just show us where to sign." "Harper," my father had grumbled, clicking his pen. "I do not have time to read a novel. We trust you. Just get the bank off our backs." They signed. They initialed. They stamped. They never asked why the deed was being transferred to Harbor Lane Holdings. They never asked who owned Harbor Lane Holdings, in their minds. I was just handling the paperwork, just moving money from one pocket to another to satisfy the greedy bankers. They believed that because I was their daughter, anything I did was ultimately for them. They believed ownership was a vibe, a feeling, not a legal definition. For 2 years, I had let them believe it. I let them call it their venue. I let them play boss. I paid the property taxes, the insurance, and the major repairs through the LLC, while they kept the petty cash from events to fund their lifestyle. I had held the deed in my safe, a nuclear option I hoped never to use. I thought that if I saved them one last time, completely and permanently, they might eventually see me. But looking at the PDF on my screen, I realized they did not see me. They saw a resource, a utility. And now, they were planning to take the asset I legally owned, and gift it to the son who had never lifted a finger to maintain it. They were going to use my signature to validate the theft of my own property. A memory surfaced then, unbidden and stinging. It was from a 4th of July barbecue, perhaps 5 or 6 years ago. I was in the kitchen making potato salad for 40 people while everyone else was outside. The kitchen window was open. I could hear my father talking to my Uncle Bob on the patio. They were holding beers, their voices loud and loose. "You have got good kids, Greg," Uncle Bob had said. "Harper is a machine. She is doing well in the city, right?" "Oh, Harper is fine," my father had replied, his tone dismissive, like he was talking about a reliable washing machine. "She is the safety net. You know, sturdy, boring. But Ethan is the one with potential. He has got the vision. He is going to be the one who carries the name. Harper is just there to make sure we do not hit the ground if we fall. She is the safety net. Ethan is the one with potential." I had stood there in the kitchen, a knife in one hand and a potato in the other, feeling a crack form in the center of my chest. A safety net is designed to be stepped on. Its only purpose is to catch the people who matter when they screw up. It has no glory. It has no name. It is just ropes and knots, destined to be stretched until it snaps. That memory, superimposed over the blurry PDF on my laptop screen, acted like a chemical catalyst. The sadness that had been pooling in my gut for decades did not boil over. It froze. It turned into something hard, sharp, and incredibly heavy. It turned into steel. They wanted me to be the safety net one last time. Fine, I would be the net, but they forgot that a net can also be a trap. I sat up straight. The exhaustion from my workday vanished, replaced by a surge of adrenaline that sharpened my vision. I was done waiting for them to love me. I was done paying for the privilege of being ignored. If they wanted to play business tycoon, if they wanted to treat family like a corporate hierarchy, then I would oblige them. I would treat this anniversary party exactly like what it was, a hostile boardroom coup. I did not reply to the email. I did not call my mother to scream or cry. I did not warn them that they were about to commit fraud in front of 200 witnesses. Instead, I moved the cursor to the forward button. I typed in my personal, encrypted email address, the one I used for sensitive client data. I added a subject line for my own records: evidence, intent to defraud. I hit send. Then, I minimized the email window and opened the file directory on my laptop. I right-clicked and created a new folder. I typed the name slowly, savoring every keystroke: anniversary, contingency plan. I dragged the PDF into the folder. Then I opened my secure cloud storage and began downloading files. The deed to Maplecrest Manor, the articles of incorporation for Harbor Lane Holdings, the bank transfer records from 2 years ago showing the payoff of their mortgage, the operating agreement signed by Greg and Carol Bell acknowledging their tenancy. I looked at the collection of files. It was not just paperwork, it was ammunition. They wanted a show. They wanted a big reveal. I would give them one. I would sit by the gift table. I would smile. I would sort the envelopes. And when they called me up to sign their fraudulent little treaty, I would not be the daughter they remembered. I would be the landlord they forgot existed. I took a sip of my wine. It tasted better now. It tasted like leverage. 3 days after receiving the email, I sat across from Marta Delaney in a glass-walled conference room 40 floors above the city. Marta was not a relative. Despite the shared surname, she was a pit bull in a silk blouse, a real estate attorney who billed $600 an hour and was worth every cent. The city skyline sprawled out behind her, a grid of gray and steel. But inside the room, the atmosphere was warm, quiet, and deadly serious. I slid a manila folder across the polished mahogany table. Inside was a printout of my mother's email, the blurry transfer agreement PDF, and a current balance sheet for Maplecrest Manor. Marta opened the folder, her eyes scanning the documents behind her tortoiseshell glasses. She did not frown. She did not gasp. She simply raised one perfectly arched eyebrow. A gesture I had learned meant she had found the flaw in the opposing counsel's logic. "So," Marta said, her voice smooth and measured, "let me get this straight. Your parents are planning a public ceremony to gift a property they do not own to a son who has no legal claim to it, using a document drafted by, let me guess, Google." "Looks like it," I replied, staring at my hands clasped on the table. "They want me to sign as a witness. They think it is just a formality." Marta closed the folder and leaned back, lacing her fingers together. "Harper, you know the reality here better than anyone, but I want you to hear me say it out loud. Legally. Greg and Carol Bell are tenants. That is it. They are tenants with a very generous landlord who happens to share their DNA." She pulled a thick binder from her side of the table. It was labeled Harbor Lane Holdings, Asset Portfolio. She opened it to the first tab. "2 years ago," Marta continued, tapping the page, "when the bank was 5 days away from seizing the property, you bought the debt. You paid off $142,000 in arrears. You funded another $85,000 for the roof repairs and the commercial kitchen upgrade. In exchange, your parents signed a deed in lieu of foreclosure. The title to Maple Crest Manor belongs to Harbor Lane Holdings. Harbor Lane Holdings belongs to you, solely, exclusively." Hearing it laid out like that, stripped of the guilt and the family dynamics, was jarring. I nodded slowly. "I know. I never wanted to rub their noses in it. I wanted them to keep their dignity. I let them keep their name on the sign. I let them tell their friends they were the owners. I thought if I handled the scary stuff in the background, they could just enjoy the front of the house." "You protected their ego," Marta corrected gently. "You acted as a silent partner in a business that does not acknowledge silent partners. And look where it got you." She flipped a page. "They are currently 6 months behind on the lease payments. The lease payments that you set at 20% of market value, by the way, a symbolic amount, and they still do not pay it." I felt a flush of shame creep up my neck. They said things were tight. They said the winter season was slow. "Harper," Marta said, her voice firm, "I pulled the venue's booking records. They hosted 12 weddings last quarter. The gross revenue was over $60,000. Where did that money go?" I knew where it went. It went to Ethan's new truck. It went to my mother's collection of designer handbags. It went to maintaining the illusion of the successful Bell family. I started, my voice cracking slightly. "I honestly thought that if I bailed them out one more time, if I just kept the wolves away for one more year, they would finally look at me and say, 'Thank you. Not thank you for the check, but thank you for saving us.' I thought I could buy their affection if I just paid a high enough price." Marta looked at me with a softness that was rare for her. "You cannot buy what they do not have in inventory. Harper, all you have done is train them. You taught them that money appears when they cry. You taught them that consequences are for other people. And now, because you never enforce the boundaries, they think they can give away your building." She closed the binder with a decisive thwap. "So," she said, shifting back to her lawyer mode, "we have 2 options. Option A. You let them do it, you sign the paper, which would legally be messy but could be construed as you gifting the property to Ethan. He runs it into the ground in 6 months, and you buy it back at auction again." "No," I said instantly. The word tasted like iron. "No, I am done cleaning up." "Good," Marta smiled. "Then we go with option B. We enforce the reality that already exists. No fraud, no screaming matches, just cold, hard paper. We remind them who actually holds the keys." We spent the next 2 hours mapping out the strategy. It was not about revenge. I told myself it was about correction. It was about aligning the physical world with the legal one. It was a forensic accounting of the truth. Step 1 was the money. The current management agreement they signed, the one they definitely did not read closely, gives Harbor Lane Holdings the right to assume direct control of all revenue streams if the tenant is in default, Marta explained. highlighting a paragraph in yellow. They are in default. 6 months of missed rent activates this clause. So I can redirect the cash flow, I asked. As of this morning, I can file an injunction to update the merchant processor, Marta said. By the night of the party, any card swiped at the bar, any final vendor payment, any new booking deposit, it all goes directly into a segregated Harbor Lane account. Greg and Carol will not be able to withdraw a cent without your digital countersign. We turn off the faucet. Step 2 was the documentation. Marta drafted a new set of documents right there in front of me. She typed furiously, her fingers flying across the keyboard. If they want to make a speech about the future of the manor, let's give them a future they can actually sign, she said. This is a new lease agreement. It converts Greg and Carol from owner-operators to salaried facility managers. It creates a probationary period of 1 year. It sets a strict salary, no more dipping into the till. And for Ethan. She paused, looking up. Does he have any actual skills? He can open a champagne bottle, I said dryly, and he's good at taking credit for things. Right, so no lease for Ethan. If he wants to work there, he applies for a job. This document clarifies that he has 0 equity, 0 management authority. He is a guest. Step 3 was the delivery. They are going to try to ambush you, Marta warned. They will put you on the spot in front of 100 people, hand you a microphone, and expect you to fold. That is their power play. Social pressure. I know, I said. They think I will be too embarrassed to cause a scene. So do not cause a scene, Marta advised. Deliver a verdict. You prepare a speech, not a tantrum, a speech. You use the microphone they give you. You thank everyone for coming, and then you lay out the facts. You tell the story of the foreclosure. You explain who Harbor Lane Holdings is. You treat the room like a jury. They will hate me, I whispered. My parents, Ethan, half the family. They will say I ruined the night. Marta leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. Harper, they are already ruining your life. They are stealing your labor and your legacy and handing it to a boy who thinks a mortgage is something that happens to other people. They are not asking for your permission. They are counting on your silence. If you stay silent, you are not a daughter. You are an accomplice to your own erasure. Her words cut through the last remaining threads of my hesitation. She was right. Silence was not noble. Silence was expensive. I took the pen Marta offered me. I signed the authorization for the bank transfer. I initialed the new lease terms. I approved the filing of the updated property records. One more thing, I said, looking at the stack of crisp, white paper. I need copies. Lots of copies. If I'm going to do this, I am not just going to say it. I am going to show it. I will have a paralegal prepare a binder for you, Marta promised. Tabbed, highlighted, idiot-proof. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years. The city below looked different now. It was no longer a towering, intimidating grid. It was just a collection of structures, each one built on a foundation, each one owned by someone who had the paperwork to prove it. I had the paperwork. I had the truth. And in 3 days, at the Maple Crest Manor, I was going to introduce my family to the real world. The afternoon sun cuts through the high windows of Maple Crest Manor in sharp, dusty beams, illuminating the floating particles of dust that will soon be inhaled by my family's carefully curated guest list. I arrive at the venue at exactly 4 o'clock, 2 hours before the doors are set to open. I am wearing a black silk jumpsuit and a structured blazer that cost more than my father's first car. It is an outfit designed for a boardroom, for a funeral, or for an execution. Today, it serves all 3 purposes. Over my shoulder hangs my leather bag. It is heavy, pulling slightly on my trap muscle, but the weight is grounding. Inside, nestled next to my laptop, is a stack of documents printed on 24-pound bond paper, crisp and authoritative. There is also a small silver USB drive in the zippered interior pocket. I used a label maker to print a single word on it, receipts. It is the most valuable thing in the room. The main hall is a flurry of last-minute panic. The florist is fighting a losing battle with a centerpiece that refuses to stand upright. The band is sound-checking a bass drum that shakes the floorboards. In the center of the chaos is my mother, Carol. She is directing the placement of a fern with the intensity of an air traffic controller landing a plane in a blizzard. "Mom," I say, stepping into her line of sight. She does not look at my face. She looks at my hands. Seeing they are empty, she frowns. She reaches into the pocket of her apron, pulls out a roll of Scotch tape and a fistful of cheap ballpoint pens, and shoves them into my chest. "Oh, good. You are here," she says, her eyes still fixed on the fern. "The tape on the gift table is peeling, and the pens for the guest book are dry. Go fix it, honey, and set up the card box. Make a spreadsheet or whatever it is you do. Just make sure it looks organized." She turns her back to me before I can say hello. Whatever it is you do, to her, my career as a senior equity partner is just a vague hobby involving computers. Something cute I do to fill the time between family obligations. I look at the roll of tape in my hand. It is generic brand, yellowing at the edges. I grip it tight enough to crack the plastic core. I walk to the corner they have assigned to me. It is a narrow banquet table pushed against the wall, dangerously close to the swinging kitchen doors. It is the kind of spot where you put the ugly cousin or the overflow coats. I set my bag down on the floor, tucking it deep under the tablecloth where it cannot be kicked. I sit in the metal folding chair. It is cold. I open my laptop, not to make a spreadsheet for them, but to open the banking portal for Harbor Lane Holdings. At 4:45, the double doors at the front of the hall swing open. My brother Ethan strides in. He is 45 minutes late for the family walkthrough, but the room seems to bend around him. He is wearing a tuxedo that I know is a rental, yet he wears it with the arrogance of ownership. Hanging on his arm is his wife, Ashley, who looks like a terrified meringue in her pastel dress. "The party has arrived," Ethan announces, throwing his arms wide. My father, who has been shouting at the bartender about the ice, immediately melts. "There he is," Greg roars, "the man of the hour." A cheer goes up from the few early relatives and the staff who have been briefed on who to suck up to. Someone hands Ethan a glass of champagne before he has even taken off his coat. He takes a sip, grimaces playfully, and hands the glass to Ashley like she is a shelf. He does not look for me. Why would he? I am part of the furniture. I am the background noise. I look down at my screen. I refresh the browser. The balance on the main operating account for the venue just jumped. The catering company has processed the final authorization for the food. The money did not go into my parents' personal checking account as it usually does. It went straight into the Harbor Lane Secure Holding account. "Transaction approved," the screen reads. I smile. It is a small, tight smile. My father is currently toasting Ethan with a glass that I effectively just paid for, but the money train has already derailed. They just haven't felt the crash yet. A man in a black vest approaches my table. He's holding a clipboard and looks like he's about to cry. It is the catering manager, a guy named David, who I have emailed 50 times in the last month but never met in person. He looks at my mother, who is now screaming about napkin folds, and then he looks at me. He sees the blazer. He sees the laptop. He sees the calm. "Excuse me," David whispers, leaning over my table. "You are Harper, right? The one who sent the revised floor plan." "I am," I say. "Thank you, God." He exhales. "Listen, the bar manager says we are short 2 cases of the Prosecco the client requested. He wants to know if we can substitute the house sparkling wine for the last hour of service. I tried to ask your dad, but he told me to figure it out and asked if I knew who his son was." "Substitute it," I say smoothly. "Nobody will know the difference after 3 drinks, and tell the kitchen to hold the appetizers for 10 minutes. The band is running late on their setup." "You are a lifesaver," David says, making a note on his clipboard. "I do not know how this place runs without you." "Neither do they," I reply, but he is already rushing away. It is a micro moment, invisible to everyone else, but it reinforces the absurdity of my position. I am the decision-maker disguised as the coat check girl. I am the engine room painted to look like a cargo hold. I watch my father steer Ethan toward a cluster of aunts and uncles near the bar. Greg loops an arm around Ethan's shoulders, squeezing him tight. I can hear his voice, booming and proud, carrying over the empty dance floor. Yes, well, tonight is a big night, Greg says, casting a glance over his shoulder. His eyes slide right past me, unfocused, as if I am a lamp or a potted plant. Ethan is finally going to get what he deserves. It is about time we secured the legacy. Right. What he deserves. The phrase lands in my chest like a stone. What has Ethan done to deserve $1 million property? He has never unclogged a toilet in the guest bathroom. He has never negotiated a liability insurance premium. He has never stayed up until 3 a.m. staring at a leaking ceiling, wondering where the money for a roofer would come from. His desert is based entirely on his biology. He was born the prince. I was born the steward. Hey, stranger. I look up to see my cousin Mia standing on the other side of the gift table. She is the only person in this family who sends me a birthday card that does not have a request for a loan inside it. She is holding a clutch purse and looking at my setup, the tape, the pens, the spreadsheet with a mixture of pity and confusion. You are always doing the boring adult stuff. Harper, Mia says, offering me a sympathetic grimace. Don't you ever get to just sit and be celebrated, I mean. It is a party. You look like you are filing taxes. Someone has to make sure the gifts don't walk away, I say, reciting the script my mother gave me. Yeah, but you are the sister, Mia says. You should be up there with them. You are practically the third parent with how much you help them out. The question sticks in my ribs. Don't you ever get to just sit and be celebrated? The answer is no. Celebration is a resource, and in the Bell family, it is a finite resource allocated entirely to the male heir. I swallow the lump in my throat. I am fine, Mia, I say, forcing a brightness I do not feel. Go get a drink. The Prosecco is decent until 9 o'clock. She squeezes my hand and walks away, but her words hang in the air. I look around the room, feeling the injustice of it bubbling up, hot and acidic. I scan the head table, checking the placement of the name cards. My eyes land on the cake table. There, tucked discreetly under the silver handle of the ceremonial cake knife, is a long, cream-colored envelope. It is not a card. It is too thick. I can see the edge of a legal document peeking out. Written on the front in my mother's swirling, delusional calligraphy is transfer papers. Sign, tonight. They put it under the knife. The symbolism is so clumsy it would be funny if it were not so violent. They plan to cut the cake, and then cut me out of the will, all in one motion. It is meant to be a surprise. Oh, Harper, just come up here and sign this while everyone is watching. They count on the ambush. They count on my politeness. I stand up. I check to make sure my mother is yelling at the DJ, and my father is refilling his drink. I walk over to the cake table, moving with the casual confidence of someone who belongs there. I pull my phone from my blazer pocket. I snap a high-resolution photo of the envelope under the knife. I capture the timestamp. Then, I reach out and pick up the envelope. I do not steal it. I simply move it. I slide it away from the center of the table, placing it behind the cake stand, just a few inches closer to where I will be standing if I were to approach the table from my side of the room. It is a tiny adjustment, a few inches, but it is an act of defiance. It is me saying, I see you. I walk back to my seat. I feel a shift in my body chemistry. The hurt is evaporating, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. The doors open officially. The guests begin to flood in. They are a sea of sequins and cologne, loud laughter and rustling fabric. They drift toward me, handing me envelopes, patting my shoulder, treating me like the help. Here you go, dear. Make sure they see this one. Working hard. Harper. I smile at all of them. I take their envelopes. I stack them neatly. I check the names off my list. I am the picture of obedience. I am the good daughter. I am the servant at the gate. But as I watch the room fill up, as I see the lights dim and the band strike up the opening number, I feel a strange sense of peace. My hand rests on the leather bag under the table. They think this building is theirs because they are standing in it. They think the heat is on because they deserve warmth. They think the lights are glowing because they shine. They have no idea that the only reason this structure is standing is because of the choices I made. I built the floor they are dancing on. I bought the roof over their heads. I am the infrastructure of their lives. And tonight, for the first time in 32 years, the infrastructure is going to speak. The party is swinging into its second hour, and the friction between reality and my parents' delusions is starting to produce sparks. I am the only one who can see them. To everyone else, the evening is a seamless flow of expensive liquor and nostalgic music. To me, it is a machine running on fumes, shaking violently just beneath the hood. The first glitch happens at the bar. I am watching from my exile by the gift table when I see the head bartender, a young man with a nervous twitch in his jaw. Try to flag down my father. Greg is currently holding court with a group of his old golfing buddies, laughing loudly enough to rattle the glassware. He waves the bartender away, clearly annoyed at being interrupted during his performance as the benevolent patriarch. The bartender looks desperate. He scans the room, his eyes landing on me. We have established a silent frequency over the last 90 minutes. He raises a hand, holding a credit card, my father's business card, the platinum-colored plastic that is mostly for show, and gives me a subtle, frantic shake of his head. I stand up and smooth the front of my jumpsuit. "Excuse me," I say to an empty chair, and walk calmly across the room. I move through the crowd like a ghost, dodging elbows and spilled drinks. When I reach the bar, the noise of the party fades into a dull roar behind me. "What is the problem?" I ask, leaning over the polished wood surface. "I am so sorry." "Harper," the bartender whispers, keeping his voice below the thrum of the jazz band. "Your dad ordered 3 more bottles of the Dom Perignon for the head table. I tried to run the card he left on file for the incidentals. It declined. Twice. I tried it on the backup terminal just to be sure. It is dead." I look at the card in his hand. It is the card my father uses to impress clients, the one he flashes when he wants to look like a player. It is also the card that is linked to a bank account that currently has a balance of less than $50. "Of course it did," I say, my voice flat. "He probably forgot to transfer the funds." "This is a lie. There are no funds to transfer." "What do you want me to do?" the bartender asks, looking at the sweating bottles of champagne sitting on the service mat. "I cannot release $600 of inventory without payment. My manager will kill me." I look over my shoulder. My father is miming a golf swing, completely oblivious to the fact that his credit rating is currently causing a traffic jam at the bar. If I let this fail, the scene happens now. The bartender stops serving. My father yells. The illusion cracks. But it is too early. The guests are not seated for the speeches yet. The stage is not fully set. "Run this one," I say, pulling my own card from my blazer pocket. It is a heavy metal card, black and sleek. It is linked to the Harbor Lane Holdings operating account, the account that collects the rent. My parents rarely pay. In a way, I am paying for their champagne with the money they owe me. The circularity of it is almost poetic. "Are you sure?" he asks. "Just do it, and keep the tab open on this card for the rest of the night. Do not bother him again." He swipes it. The machine beeps a cheerful acceptance. The crisis evaporates. The bartender pops the corks, and a waiter whisks the golden bottles away to the head table, where my father will pour them and accept the praise for his generosity. I watch the bubbles rise in the glasses from across the room, knowing that I just bought them another hour of fantasy. I return to my seat. My mother is standing near the gift table now, adjusting the tie of my brother, Ethan. She is picking lint off his lapel with the obsessive care of a primate grooming its young. She sees me sit down. "Everything okay at the bar?" she asks, not really caring about the answer. "Just a technical glitch," I say. "I handled it." She turns to Ethan, beaming. "See, Harper is so good with the little fires. She loves feeling useful. It is sweet, really. It gives her something to do while the rest of us are, well, hosting." So good with numbers, Ethan agrees, checking his reflection in the back of a spoon. I do not know how you do it. Harp, spreadsheets make my eyes cross. That is why you have me, I say, opening my laptop again, to handle the things you cannot see. Exactly, Wow, my mother says, patting my cheek with a hand that feels ice cold. You are the engine room. Honey, Ethan is the captain. Every ship needs both. They drift away, laughing at a private joke. I watch them go, feeling a dark, bubbling laughter in my own chest. She is right. I am the engine room. But what she forgets is that the engine room contains the scuttle valves. And if the captain steers the ship into an iceberg, the engine room is the only place that can seal the bulkheads and decide who drowns. My phone buzzes against my hip, a single vibration. I pull it out, shielding the screen with my hand. It is a text from Marta. New management agreement executed. Revenue lock is live. The merchant processor has updated. Every dime swiped from this second forward goes to Harbor Lane. Happy anniversary to them. I stare at the words. The trap is no longer theoretical. It is active. The money flowing through this room, the cash gifts, the bar tab, the future bookings is no longer slipping into my parents' pockets. It is being diverted into a fortress they cannot breach. I slip the phone back into my bag. My pulse does not race. It slows down. I feel the steady, rhythmic thumping of my heart, calm and precise. Over the speakers, the music dips. The DJ, a man with too much gel in his hair and a voice meant for selling used cars, taps his microphone. All right, folks, we have a fantastic night ahead of us. In just a little bit, we have a huge surprise, a legacy moment you will never forget. The Bell family has a big announcement about the future of Maple Crest Manor, so grab a drink, find your seats, and get ready for the passing of the torch. The room buzzes. I hear the whispers ripple through the crowd near my table. I bet they are retiring. I heard they bought a condo in Florida. No, I heard they are giving the whole place to Ethan. Did you see the new car he pulled up in? Passing the torch, finally. I look at the gift table. It is groaning under the weight of envelopes. There must be $10,000 in cash and checks in that card box. Money meant to fund my parents' retirement, or Ethan's next vacation. I pull a fresh sheet of paper from my bag. I pick up a pen. I start to make a list. Aunt Linda, cream envelope, the Davises, gold card, Uncle Bob, thick white envelope. I am not listing them so my parents can write thank you notes. My parents have not written a thank you note in 20 years. They usually just post a generic status on Facebook. I am listing them because I intend to write the notes. Dear Aunt Linda, thank you so much for your generous gift. I have applied it directly to the principal balance of the mortgage that prevents this building from being seized by the county. Your contribution to the debt service is appreciated. It will be the most honest correspondence this family has ever produced. A shadow falls over my list. Ethan is back. He drops 3 more envelopes onto the pile, tossing them casually like he is discarding trash. Heavy haul tonight, huh? He grins, leaning against the table. He smells of expensive cologne and the champagne I just paid for. Good thing you are here to count it. I would probably lose half of it on the way to the car. Probabilities suggest you would lose all of it, I say without looking up. He laughs, a loud, barking sound. You are funny. Harper, listen. Enjoy playing secretary tonight. Seriously. Because once we make the announcement, things are going to change. I am going to modernize this place. Streamline the operations. You will not have to worry about all this paperwork anymore. You can get back to your little job in the city. I will take it from here. My hand stops moving. My little job in the city manages portfolios worth more than the GDP of a small country. My little job is the reason he is not standing in a foreclosed warehouse right now. You are going to streamline the operations, I ask, my voice neutral. Oh yeah, Ethan says, looking out at the room with a dreamy, conqueror's gaze. Outsource the boring stuff. Focus on the brand. Dad says I have a vision for the big picture. You know, the legacy stuff. I look at him. Really look at him. He is not malicious. He is worse. He is completely blissfully ignorant. He has absorbed my parents' worldview so thoroughly that he believes money is a naturally occurring element, like oxygen. He believes that bills are suggestions and that responsibility is a dirty task best left to the help. He thinks the boring stuff, the taxes, the insurance, the debt service, is beneath him. The big picture is expensive, Ethan, I say. That is what the revenue is for, sis. He winks. Money comes, money goes. You just have to keep the party moving. He pushes off the table and saunters away, high-fiving a cousin as he goes. He walks with the confidence of a man who has never checked a bank balance in his life. A moment later, David, the catering manager, appears at my side again. He looks relieved. Hey, just a heads up, David says softly. The system just processed the final scheduled payment for the rest of the contract. It went through the account on file, the Harbor Lane one. Thank you, David, I say. Your dad just asked me if I got the check he mailed last week. David rolls his eyes. I told him we were all settled electronically. He looked confused. But he was too busy to ask questions. I figure it is better if he thinks his magic check arrived, right? Let him believe in magic for one more hour, I say. You are the boss, David says, and then he catches himself. I mean, well, you know what I mean. Yes, I say. I am the boss. The sun begins to set outside the tall windows. The natural light fades, replaced by the warm, amber glow of the fairy lights strung across the rafters. The room transforms. It becomes magical, intimate, golden. It is a beautiful lie. I sit back in my chair. The noise of the party washes over me. I feel a strange sensation. It is not anger. The anger burned out days ago. It is not fear. I have prepared too well to be afraid. It is gravity. I am watching a structure that has been rotting for years finally reach the tipping point. I am watching a bridge that has been held up by my own back finally start to buckle because I have stepped away. There is a peace in it. It is the peace of knowing that you can stop fighting the laws of physics. They are dancing on a floor I own. They are drinking wine I bought. They are celebrating a legacy I saved. And in less than an hour, they are going to try to give it all away to a man who thinks he is a king. I touch the leather bag under the table. The documents are there. The truth is there. Let the party run on credit for a few more minutes. The bill is about to come due, and for the first time in my life, I am not the one who is going to pay it. The MC cuts the dance music, the sudden silence rolling over the room like a heavy fog. He drops his voice to that hushed, reverent tone usually reserved for introducing a head of state or announcing the winner of a beauty pageant. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention on the dance floor, please, we have reached the highlight of our evening, a moment 35 years in the making. The lights in the banquet hall dim, leaving only the amber glow of the fairy lights and a single, harsh spotlight cutting through the darkness. It lands on the center of the floor where my parents are standing. My father, Greg, has one hand in his pocket and the other gripping a microphone like a weapon. My mother, Carol, is clinging to his arm, dabbing at perfectly dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. Behind them, a large projection screen descends from the ceiling. A slideshow begins to play, accompanied by a sentimental piano ballad that sounds suspiciously like the soundtrack to a pharmaceutical commercial. The images flicker past, 10 feet tall. There is a grainy photo of their wedding day. My mother in puffed sleeves, my father with a full head of hair. There are baby pictures of Ethan, naked on a bearskin rug. There are pictures of Ethan at his Little League games. Then, a photo of a family vacation to Hawaii from 4 years ago. In the picture, my parents and Ethan are wearing matching floral leis, holding tropical cocktails, smiling with the golden sunset behind them. I am not in the photo. I am not in the photo because I was the one holding the camera. I am not in the photo because I was also the one who paid for the plane tickets, the hotel suite, and the rental car they are leaning against. To the 200 people watching this montage, I simply do not exist in the narrative of leisure. I am the ghost behind the lens. My father brings the microphone to his lips. His voice booms, magnified, and rich with manufactured emotion. You know, folks, he begins, looking out at the shadowed faces of his friends and our relatives. When Carol and I started this journey, we did not have 2 nickels to rub together. We built this life on sacrifice. We built it on hard work. We poured our blood, sweat, and tears into Maple Crest Manor, not for ourselves, but so we could build something that lasts, a legacy. I sit perfectly still in my metal chair by the gift table. Sacrifice. I wonder if he remembers the sacrifice of my tuition money. I wonder if he remembers whose sweat actually paid for the commercial HVAC unit humming on the roof right now. He talks about pouring everything into this building, but looking at the spreadsheet in my mind, the only thing Greg Bell ever poured into this place was cheap scotch and bad decisions. But a legacy is not a legacy if it ends with you, he continues, his voice cracking theatrically. You have to pass it on. You have to trust the next generation to carry the torch. My mother steps forward. She takes the microphone, her hand trembling just enough to catch the light. She looks at Ethan, who is standing just outside the spotlight, waiting for his cue like an actor in the wings. My beautiful boy, she says, and a few aunts in the front row audibly sigh. Ethan, come out here. Ethan steps into the light. The crowd applauds politely. He walks with a strut that suggests he has done something to earn this moment other than simply being born male. He kisses my mother on the cheek. She cups his face, playing to the back row. Every kingdom needs a prince who is ready to rule, she announces, her voice thick with pride. And tonight, we are so proud to give you your kingdom. She reaches behind her back and produces a large, oversized prop key. It is painted gold and tied with a red ribbon. It is tacky. It is ridiculous. It is exactly the kind of prop they would think is classy. Ethan accepts the key, holding it over his head like a trophy. The room erupts. The applause is louder this time, fueled by the open bar and the sheer spectacle of it all. Flashes pop from smartphones. Then, my father takes the mic back to deliver the line that turns the theater into a legal proceeding. This isn't just a symbol. Everyone, he shouts over the cheering. We are making it official. Tonight, we are transferring the deed and ownership of Maple Crest Manor to our son, Ethan. We are retiring, and he is taking over. He will carry the Bell name forward for the next generation. The words hang in the air. Transferring the deed. The applause falters. It doesn't stop, but it changes texture. It becomes thinner, more confused. I see heads turning. I see eyes darting toward my dark corner by the kitchen doors. People know. The cousins know. The catering staff knows. Even the neighbors know who drives over here at midnight when the alarm trips. The silence around my gift table is heavy. It is the silence of a crowd that has just witnessed a public execution and isn't sure if they should clap. The unspoken question hangs like smoke in the room. And what about her? What about Harper? My mother senses the drop in energy. She is a master of social temperature. She knows she needs to address the elephant in the room, but only to dismiss it. She scans the dark until she finds me. And of course, she trills, her voice bright and brittle, we could not do the paperwork without our little actuary Harper. Honey, come on up here. I do not move immediately. I let the summons hang there for a second. Come on up, sweetheart, she calls again, waving her hand dismissively. Help us with the boring forms. You know we are hopeless with the fine print. The MC chuckles into his own mic. Every family needs one responsible one. Right, folks? Let's hear it for the big sister. I stand up. I pick up my leather bag. I do not leave it under the table. I sling it over my shoulder. It is a break in protocol who brings a handbag to the center of a dance floor, but I do not care. I walk toward the light. I do not rush. My heels click rhythmically on the hardwood floor I paid to have refinished last year. Click, click, click. I keep my face pleasant, neutral. I am not the angry daughter. I am the professional. I am the consultant arriving to mitigate a disaster. When I reach the center of the floor, the spotlight hits me. It is hot and blinding. My parents are beaming at me, their smiles tight and warning. Play along. Their eyes say, "Don't ruin this." "Here she is," my father says, clapping a hand on my shoulder. It feels heavy and possessive. "Our Harper, always looking out for the details." He gestures to a small, round table that has been set up next to them. It is draped in white linen. On it sits a single black pen and the cream-colored envelope I saw earlier under the cake knife. It looks like a portable altar, an altar for a human sacrifice. "We have got the papers right here," Greg says, sliding the envelope toward me. "Ethan signed his part earlier. We just need you to witness the transfer. Honey, make it legal so we can get back to the party." He thinks he is handing me a death warrant for my own inheritance. He thinks I'm going to open this envelope, see that they are giving my brother the building I saved, and sign it because I'm too weak to make a scene. I reach out and take the envelope. I feel the thickness of the paper inside. My father watches me, his eyes gleaming with triumph. He thinks he has won. He thinks he has outsmarted the safety net. I open the flap. I slide the documents out. My father does not know that 2 hours ago, when I fixed the cake table display, I did not just move the envelope, I swapped the contents. The document I am holding now, the one with the header, Agreement of Terms, is not the crude legal Zoom template they downloaded. It is the document Marta drafted. I pretend to skim it. I flip the first page. I see the clause in bold acknowledges Harbor Lane Holdings, LLC, as the sole proprietor of the real property. I flip to the second page. Greg and Carol Bell are hereby retained as facility managers on a probationary basis. I flip to the third page. Ethan Bell is recognized as a non-equity guest with no operational authority. I look up. I meet my brother's eyes. He is holding his giant gold key, grinning like a lottery winner. He has no idea the key opens nothing. He has no idea the paper I am holding effectively evicts his ego from the premises. Just the signature line on the back. "Harp," Ethan says, nudging me. "Don't overthink it. It is just standard stuff." "Standard stuff," I repeat. My voice is amplified by the microphone my father is still holding near me. The room hears it. It sounds calm, deadly. "Yeah, just sign it so we can cut the cake," my mother hisses under her breath, her smile never wavering for the cameras. I look at the document one last time. It is a masterpiece of legal entrapment. By signing this witness line, I am not witnessing a transfer of ownership. I am executing an employment contract. I am validating the new lease. I am turning the owners into employees. If they had read it, if they had ever bothered to read anything I put in front of them, they would scream. But they didn't. They never do. They rely on me to do the reading. They rely on me to handle the boring parts. So I handle it. I uncap the pen. I lean over the table. The room is silent, watching the obedient daughter do what she is told. I sign my name in a clean, practiced hand. Harper Bell. I cap the pen. I do not hand the document back to my father. I do not hand it to Ethan. I place my hand on top of it, pressing it firmly against the table. "There," my father booms, looking relieved. "It is done. The manor belongs to Ethan." The crowd cheers again, but it is a confused cheer. They are waiting for the cake. They are waiting for the music. I turn to the MC, who is standing close by. I reach out and gently take the microphone from his hand. He looks surprised, but he lets go. "Harper," my mother whispers, her smile faltering. "What are you doing?" "We need to cut the cake." I step away from them. I step away from the parents who tried to steal from me, and the brother who thinks he owns me. I stand alone in the spotlight, holding the microphone, my hand resting on the bag full of receipts. They wanted a performance. They wanted a show about legacy. "I am sorry," I say, my voice ringing out clear and steady over the speakers, silencing the room instantly. "I just have one small correction to make before we cut the cake." My father's face goes slack. He takes a step toward me, sensing the shift in the air. "Harper, sit down," he growls, low enough that only I can hear. I smile at him. It is the first genuine smile I have smiled all night. You asked me to handle the paperwork, Dad, I say into the mic. So I did. The trap is sprung, the ink is dry, and now, the engine room is about to blow the whistle. Can I just say something quickly? I ask, my voice amplified by the speakers, cutting through the anticipatory murmur of the crowd. While we are all gathered here, it feels like the right moment. The microphone feels cool and heavy in my hand, a dense cylinder of metal that currently holds more power than the ceremonial key Ethan is clutching like a toddler's toy. I do not wait for permission. I turn slightly, addressing the room, my back partially to my parents. The MC steps back, sensing a shift in the script, but powerless to stop it. My mother's hand twitches toward my arm, then retracts. She cannot scene manage this without looking crazy in front of the neighbors. She freezes, her smile tightening into a grimace of polite tolerance. I just wanted to take a moment to look at this room, I begin, my tone warm, affectionate, the perfect pitch of a loving daughter. I want to thank every single one of you for coming tonight. I have been sitting over there in the corner for the last 2 hours, right next to the gift table, and I have watched the generosity pile up. The envelopes, the cards, the well wishes. It is truly overwhelming how much you all want to give to Greg and Carol. A few guests smile and raise their glasses. My father puffs out his chest, assuming the compliment is for him. He thinks I am doing the warm-up act. He thinks I am fluffing the pillow before he lays his head on the crown. Generosity is a funny thing in the Bell family, I continue, my voice dropping just a fraction, becoming more conversational, more intimate. We talk a lot about legacy. We talk a lot about sacrifice. Dad just gave a beautiful speech about pouring everything into this building, and it got me thinking about the nature of gifts, about who gives and who takes. I take a step away from them. Just one step. It creates a subtle visual gap. You see, for a long time, the flow of gifts in this house has been a bit one-sided. We don't really talk about it, because in this family, we value appearances over reality. But since we are transferring the deed tonight, since we are being so open and official, I thought it might be nice to share a little story about how we kept this building long enough to have this party. My mother's eyes widen. She knows the story. She just never thought I would tell it. Harper, she warns, a low hiss that the microphone does not pick up. Keep it short. I ignore her. I look directly at my Uncle Bob in the front row. 2 years ago, I say. On a rainy Tuesday in November, there was a different kind of envelope on the table. It was not a gift card. It was a notice of default from the county bank. A foreclosure notice. The sheriff was scheduled to arrive in 7 days to padlock the doors. A murmur ripples through the room. The clinking of silverware stops. My father laughs, a loud, booming, nervous sound. Oh, Harper loves the drama. That was just a mix-up with the bank. Honey, a clerical error. It was a $142,000 clerical error. I say. I do not shout. I do not look at him. I keep my eyes on the audience. And the bank was not mixing anything up. The mortgage had not been paid in 11 months. The operating capital was gone. The lights were about to go out. The silence in the room is absolute now. It is the kind of silence that sucks the air out of your lungs. My parents were frantic, I go on, painting the scene with calm precision. They did not want to lose the manor. They did not want to lose the status, so they called a friend, a mystery investor, someone who could step in, pay off the debt, and save the family image. I turn back to my parents. They are staring at me, their faces pale, their smiles frozen like masks that are starting to crack. They look like wax figures left too close to a fire. They told me that night that they would do anything to save this place, I say. They signed a stack of papers at midnight. They were so relieved to see the check clearing that they did not really read what they were signing. They just wanted the problem to go away. They wanted to go back to being the king and queen of the castle. I pause. I let the beat lengthen. And they did. For 2 years. They played the part. But tonight, They tried to give you a sequel that they do not have the rights to produce. I turn around and begin to walk. I walk away from the center spotlight. I walk away from the head table. I walk back toward the dark, narrow corner where they seated me. The crowd parts for me, their heads turning in unison like a wave. The only sound is the rhythmic click-clack of my heels on the floorboards. I reach the gift table, my sanctuary, my prison. I place the microphone down on the tablecloth, next to the plastic box stuffed with cash. The thud is audible over the speakers. Then, I reach down. I pull my heavy leather bag up from the floor and set it on the table. It sits there, battered and real, amidst the ribbons and the glitter. I unzip it. The sound of the zipper is sharp, like a fabric tearing. I pull out the first folder. It is bright red. I hold it up so the room can see the label. Printed in bold. Black block letters, deed. I pull out the second folder. Blue, management agreement. I pull out the third folder. Green, payment history. I fan them out on the gift table. I pick up the microphone again. I am not just good with numbers, I say, my voice steady, devoid of the trembling that usually accompanies a confrontation. I am not just the helpful daughter who organizes the spreadsheets. I am Harbor Lane Holdings. Ethan laughs. It is a wet, choking sound. He steps forward, waving his hand dismissively, trying to rally the room back to his side. Okay, Ethan stammers, forcing a grin that looks painful. Very dramatic. Harp, seriously. But come on, Harbor Lane is just the shell company, right? It is just a legal technicality so we could refinance. You are making it sound like a hostile takeover. It is family business. It is all the same pot. It is not the same pot, Ethan, I say, and it is not a technicality. I open the red folder. I slide out the deed, the original deed, with the raised seal of the county clerk stamped in the corner. I hold it up to the light. I am going to read from paragraph 4, section B of the transfer of title, dated November 14th, 2 years ago, I announce. I look down at the paper, though I know the words by heart. The grantors, Gregory and Carol Bell, hereby convey and warrant to the grantee, Harbor Lane Holdings, LLC, the real property known as Maple Crest Manor, in fee simple absolute, free of all encumbrances except those of record. The grantors acknowledge they retain no equity, interest, or claim to the property herein. I look up. For those of you who do not speak lawyer, that means Greg and Carol Bell sold this building 2 years ago. They do not own the walls. They do not own the roof. They do not own the floor you are standing on. I point a finger at myself, a sharp, stabbing gesture against my own chest. I do. The murmur in the room turns into a roar. I see my Aunt Linda cover her mouth with her hand. I see the catering manager, David, standing by the kitchen door, slowly nodding his head with a look of grim satisfaction. My father lunges for the MC's microphone, trying to cut me off, but the sound guy is paralyzed, watching the train wreck. This is a lie. Greg shouts, his voice cracking without amplification. She is confused. We have a deal. We have an understanding. We have a lease, I correct him into the mic. A lease that you are 6 months behind on. A lease that you have violated every single day by pretending you still own this place. I reach into the pile of gifts. I pick up a gold envelope. It is heavy, likely containing a check for $1,000 or more. I turn it over in my fingers, treating it like a piece of evidence in a murder trial. You seated me here, I say, gesturing to the narrow chair squeezed between the boxes. You put me next to the gift table because you wanted to remind me of my place. You wanted me to guard the envelopes. You wanted me to act like a servant. I toss the envelope back onto the pile. It slides across the table and hits the plastic money box. It is funny, I say, my voice dropping to a whisper that screams through the speakers. You were so busy trying to put me in the corner that you forgot something very important. You forgot that the person sitting at the gift table is the only one who knows how to pay the bills. You forgot that while you were playing royalty, I was the one keeping the lights on. I look at my mother. The color has drained completely from her face. She looks old. For the first time, the makeup cannot hide the fear. She realizes this is not a tantrum. This is not a daughter acting out. This is an audit. This is a foreclosure of the soul. And this paper, I gesture to the document I just signed, which is still sitting on the round table in the center of the room where I left it. The one you just had me sign, the one you thought was a gift to Ethan. Ethan looks down at the table, then back at me, his eyes wide with a dawning horror. I didn't sign a transfer. Ethan, I say. I signed your employment contract. And frankly, based on your performance tonight, I am not sure you are going to make it past the probationary period. The room is deadly silent. No one is eating. No one is drinking. The band has lowered their instruments. The fantasy has been stripped away, leaving only the cold, hard steel of the truth. My father looks at the guests, then at me, his face twisting into a snarl of desperation. "You are ruining this family," he seethes, loud enough for the front row to hear. "You are embarrassing us." "No, Dad," I say, closing the red folder with a snap. "I am just balancing the ledger. You spent 35 years taking credit for things you didn't earn. Tonight, the bill finally came due." I look at the stack of folders on the table. My work here is done. I have turned the gift table into a witness stand, and the verdict is written on every stunned face in the room. My father lunges for the microphone. It is a desperate, flailing motion, the physical manifestation of a man realizing his narrative control has been severed. He snatches the device from the gift table where I had placed it, his knuckles white, his face flushed a deep, alarming crimson. The feedback squeal pierces the room, making half the guests wince and cover their ears, a sonic representation of the discomfort rippling through the hall. "This is completely inappropriate," Greg bellows, his voice booming and distorted. He glares at me, then sweeps his gaze over the stunned audience, trying to force them back into the role of adoring spectators. "I apologize. Everyone, truly, family business should stay private. We should not be airing our laundry like this. It is vulgar." I stand perfectly still, my hands resting lightly on the folders spread out before me. The accusation of vulgarity is rich coming from a man who just tried to publicly defraud his daughter in front of 200 people. "Private?" I ask. My voice is not amplified anymore, but the acoustics of the hall. Acoustics I paid an engineer $4,000 to perfect during the renovation carry my words clearly to the front row and beyond. Family business should stay private. Is that right, Dad? I pick up the blue folder labeled Payment History. I open it, the sound of the stiff paper turning is crisp in the silence. "You did not mind making the business public when you needed a wire transfer at 2 a.m. 3 years ago," I say, reading from the top sheet. "Do you remember that night the sheriff was scheduled to auction off the industrial ovens and the antique dining chairs, the very chairs Aunt Linda is sitting on right now to cover your gambling debts? You called me weeping. You said the shame would kill you. I wired $18,000 from my personal savings account at 2:15 in the morning so you could keep your furniture. Was that private, or was that just convenient?" My father's mouth opens and closes, but no sound comes out. The guests shift in their seats. Aunt Linda looks down at the chair she is sitting on as if it has suddenly become hot. I flip the page. "And what about the renovation loan?" I continue, my tone clinical, like a surgeon detailing a procedure. "When you wanted to expand the patio so you could charge 50% more for summer weddings, no bank would touch you. Your credit score was in the low 500s. So I co-signed. I put my own credit worthiness on the line. $120,000. You promised to make the monthly payments from the increased revenue. You made exactly 3 payments. I have made the last 22. I look at Ethan, who is standing near the cake, looking like he wants to dissolve into the floorboards. "And let's not forget the wedding," I say, pulling a credit card statement from the file. "Ethan's magical destination wedding in Cabo, the one everyone here called the event of the decade, the one Mom said was a gift from the family pot. There was no pot. There was just my Visa signature card. I paid off the $35,000 balance over 18 months. I paid for the open bar where you toasted to your own success. I paid for the suite where you slept. We always intended to pay you back, my mother cries out. She has stepped forward, her hands clasped in front of her chest, tears streaming down her face. But these are not the pretty staged tears from earlier. These are the tears of a woman who knows the curtain has been ripped down. Harper, please, we are family. We always meant to make it right. You know how hard it has been. Did you? I ask. I reach into the back pocket of the blue folder and pull out a single sheet of paper. It is a printed email. This is an email you sent to Cousin Mia's mother last Christmas, I say. I found it when I was helping you fix your iPad because you said it was acting funny. You were discussing why you decided to buy a new Lexus instead of paying me back for the property taxes I covered. I lift the paper and read the highlighted sentence aloud. Harper does not really need the money back. She is single, she works all the time, and she makes more than she knows what to do with. It is better that we use the cash to keep up appearances for Ethan. Harper is fine. She is our little bank vault. I lower the paper. I look at my mother. I am not a bank vault. Mom, I am a person, and I do know what to do with my money. I just never got the chance to spend it on myself because I was too busy buying you a reputation. The room is frozen. The level of embarrassment in the air is toxic. Guests are staring at their shoes, at their drinks, anywhere but at the stage. But they are listening. They are hanging on every word. Ethan steps forward then. He adjusts his tie, trying to summon the charm that has allowed him to coast through life without friction. He forces a laugh, waving his hand as if to shoo away a fly. Okay, look, Ethan says, his voice shaking slightly. This is getting heavy. Harp, seriously, put the papers away. Transfer the thing with the deed, it is just symbolic. You know that. We all know you help out. But tonight is about the name. It is about the future. Of course, you will always be part of the family business. We are a team. A team, I repeat. Is that why you told your fraternity brothers in the VIP booth 20 minutes ago that you were inheriting the hall tonight and that you were planning to fire the old management, meaning Mom and Dad within 6 months? My parents whip their heads around to stare at Ethan. I didn't say that. Ethan lies, but his face betrays him. It goes pale. I was just talking. You were counting chickens in a coop you do not own, I say. And that brings me to the document I just signed. I point to the table where the paper still sits. You all think I just signed a transfer of ownership to Ethan. You think I witnessed the passing of the torch. I pause, letting the expectation build. I didn't. I walk over to the round table, pick up the document, and hold it up. This is a legally binding employment and management agreement, I announce. Effective immediately. Harbor Lane Holdings, that is me, is retaining Gregory and Carol Bell as on-site facility managers. You are now employees. You have a salary. It is a fair market salary, but it is fixed, and you have a probationary period of 1 year. Employees, my father sputters, the word tasting like poison in his mouth. I am the owner. I built this. You built the debt, I correct him. I bought the building, and as for the finances starting tomorrow morning, all venue revenue will be audited, every booking, every deposit, every bar tab. It all goes through the Harbor Lane corporate account. I will issue your paychecks on the 1st and the 15th. There will be no more fuzzy withdrawals. No more taking $500 from the cash drawer for golf fees. No more putting family vacations on the company card. If you want to spend money, you will have to save it from your salary, just like everyone else in this room. I turn to Ethan. And this agreement specifies that Ethan Bell has no official role in the company. He is not an owner. He is not a manager. If he wants to work here, he is welcome to submit a resume for the assistant groundskeeper position. We are hiring. My father erupts. He throws the microphone down. It bounces off the floor with a deafening thud and storms toward me. He stops just inches from my face, vibrating with rage. The mask of the loving patriarch is gone. In its place is a man who realizes his entitlement has just been foreclosed upon. You ungrateful little brat, he hisses, spit flying from his lips. After everything we gave you a home, we gave you a name, and you stand here and humiliate us. You are stealing the family legacy. You are stealing what belongs to your brother. There it is, the truth, finally spoken out loud. He does not see my years of work as a gift. He sees them as a tax I owed him for existing. He does not see the building as something I saved. He sees it as something I am withholding from the rightful heir. I look at him. I do not flinch. I do not step back. I feel a towering, icy calm. I am not ungrateful, Dad, I say quietly. I am exhausted. I take a breath. The air in the room feels sharp and cold. And you are wrong about one thing, I say, my voice projecting clearly even without the mic. You didn't give me a legacy. I look around the hall at the lights I paid for, the floor I refinished, the walls I reinforced. You took my legacy, I say, and you put your name on it. I walk back to the gift table. I begin to pack up my things. I slide the red, blue, and green folders back into my bag. I zip it shut. The sound is final. As of tonight, I say, addressing the room one last time. The Bank of Harper is closed. I am cutting off all informal financial support. There will be no more midnight wires, no more covered credit card bills, no more silent bailouts. I sling the bag over my shoulder. It feels lighter than it did when I walked in. If you need money, I say to my parents, you can ask for an advance on your salary. I will have my accountant review the request. He is very thorough. I suggest you get used to the paperwork. My father stands there, panting, his hands clenched into fists, powerless against the wall of facts I have built around him. My mother is sobbing into her hands, not for the loss of her daughter, but for the loss of her credit limit. Ethan is staring at the floor, looking like a child who has just been told Santa Claus is dead. I look at them one last time. They look small. They look like tenants. Enjoy the cake, I say. I believe it is already paid for, but check the receipt, just in case. The silence that follows my declaration is not empty. It is heavy, fractured, and alive. It is the sound of a family myth shattering in real time, the shards landing indiscriminately on the guests who came for free champagne and ended up as witnesses to a deposition. The room begins to split into quiet, visible factions. It is a slow tectonic shift. To my left, I see my father's golf buddies and a few of the more superficial cousins glaring at me. Their eyes narrow with the specific indignation of people who prefer a comfortable lie to an inconvenient truth. They whisper behind their hands, shaking their heads, mouthing words like cruel and dirty laundry. They are the ones who believe that family loyalty means enabling self-destruction, as long as it looks good in a holiday newsletter. But to my right, something else is happening. My great-aunt Sarah, a woman who has survived 3 husbands and the Great Depression, steps forward. She does not look at my parents. She looks at me. She nods, a single, sharp dip of her chin that communicates more validation than 30 years of my mother's empty praise. Next to her, my cousin Mia steps out from behind the gift table. She crosses her arms and stands next to my chair, creating a physical barrier between me and the rest of the room. I hear a murmur ripple through the older relatives, the ones who remember what it was like before my father started pretending he was an aristocrat. I knew it, someone whispers loudly. I knew she was the one paying for it all. About time someone said it, another voice mutters. My mother, Carol, hears the tide turning. She panics. She abandons the sobbing victim act and lunges toward me, her heels clicking frantically on the floorboards. She grabs my wrist. Her fingers are like claws, digging into my skin with a desperation that hurts. Her face is inches from mine, her mascara smeared, her eyes wide and terrified. Harper, please, she begs, her voice a wet, frantic whisper. You have to fix this. You can fix this. Just tell them you were joking. Tell them it is a prank. Please, honey, do it for your brother. Do not let this be the memory people have of tonight. I will do anything. I will sign anything later. Just let Ethan have his moment. I look down at her hand gripping my wrist. It is the hand that signed me up for student loans I did not want. It is the hand that dialed my number only when a bill was due. It is the hand that pushed me into the background for 3 decades. His moment, I repeat, my voice low and steady. Mom, this is his moment. This is the reality of his moment. It is unfunded. It is unearned, and it is over. I do not yank my arm away. I am not violent. I simply reach up with my other hand and pry her fingers off my skin, one by one. I do it gently, but with an immovable force. I remove her grip from my body, and in doing so, I remove her grip on my life. I cannot fix a reality you broke 30 years ago, I say. Ethan steps up behind her. His face is a mottled map of embarrassment and rage. He looks at the guests, then at me, realizing that his coronation has turned into a performance review. Are you serious right now? Ethan demands, his voice cracking. You are really going to ruin my future over a technicality, over some paperwork? I am your brother. Harper, you are supposed to have my back. I did have your back, I counter, my voice cutting through his hysteria. I carried you on my back for 10 years. That is why you never learned to walk on your own. So that is it, he sneers. You are just going to kick me out. You are going to steal the venue and leave me with nothing. I am not stealing anything. Ethan, I am protecting an asset. And as for your future, I pause, looking him up and down, seeing the expensive suit, the soft hands, the entitlement radiating off him like heat. Your future was never mine to fund. If you want to run a venue, if you truly believe you have the vision for it, then prove it. You can start by applying for the assistant manager job. The application is on the website. I will treat your resume with the exact same scrutiny I give anyone else. He recoils as if I slapped him. The idea of applying for a job in a building he thought he owned is a concept his brain cannot fully process. I turn away from them. I have one last piece of administrative business to conclude. I walk back to the gift table. The microphone is still there, resting on the tablecloth. I pick it up. One final thing, I announce to the room. The guests go silent again, waiting for the aftershock. I know many of you gave generous monetary gifts tonight, I say, looking at the pile of envelopes. You gave them under the impression that they were going to Greg and Carol for their retirement, or to Ethan for his legacy. I want to be very clear about where that money is going. My father flinches, sensing another blow to his wallet. I will be personally processing every check and cash gift in this box, I continue. And I will be sending handwritten thank you notes and receipts to each of you. Every single dollar collected tonight will be applied directly to the principal debt of Maple Crest Manor. It will not be used for vacations. It will not be used for kitchen remodels. It will not be used to maintain anyone's image. It will be used to ensure this building is still standing in 10 years. I set the microphone down. It is a promise to the guests, but it is a lock on the safe for my parents. I have just publicly frozen their assets. I reach into my bag for the last time. I pull out a single, slim envelope. It does not have a ribbon. It does not have calligraphy. It is plain white business stationery. I slide it across the table toward my parents. It stops right in front of my father. What is this? Greg growls, eyeing it like it is a bomb. That, I say, is a residential lease agreement. It covers the 3-bedroom house attached to the back of the venue, the house you currently live in. He stares at it. I am not evicting you from your home, Dad, I say, my voice devoid of malice. I am not a monster, but you are no longer the owners. You are tenants. That document offers you a lifetime lease at 40% of the market rate. It is affordable. It is generous, but it comes with conditions. You stop borrowing money from me behind my back. You stop claiming you own Harbor Lane Holdings. And you treat me as your landlord and your employer, with the respect that entails. My father's face turns purple. His pride, the only currency he has left, is being devalued in front of an audience. He reaches for the envelope. He grabs it with shaking hands. I will not sign this, he shouts. I will not be a tenant in my own house. He starts to tear the envelope in half. The paper rips with a sharp zzzed sound. Greg, stop. My mother's voice is a shriek. She lunges at him, grabbing his hands, stopping the tear before it ruins the document. She looks at him, her eyes wide with a sudden, terrifying clarity. She looks at the room. She looks at the gift table, and then she looks at me. She realizes, for the first time in her life, that there is no net. There is no backup plan. There is no magical wire transfer coming at midnight. There is only the daughter she pushed to the edge of the room, and that daughter is packing her bag. "Do not tear it," Carol whispers, her voice trembling. "Greg, do not tear it. We have nowhere else to go." My father freezes. He looks at his wife. He looks at the half-torn envelope. He realizes she is right. The bluster drains out of him, leaving him looking small and defeated. He drops his hands. I do not wait for them to sign it. The offer is on the table. They can take it, or they can leave. It is no longer my problem to solve. I pick up my leather bag. I zip it closed. I look at the metal folding chair where I spent the last 2 hours. It looks empty and sad. I leave it there. I turn toward the exit, the crowd. Sensing the finale, parts for me. They create a wide aisle, stepping back as if I am dangerous, or perhaps as if I am radioactive. I walk through the gap. I keep my head high. I do not look at my cousins. I do not look at the bartender. I look straight ahead at the double doors that lead to the night. Behind me, the band, confused by the silence, awkwardly starts playing again. It is a hesitant, stumbling rendition of "We Are Family." The irony is perfect. I reach the doorway. I push the heavy oak door open. The cool night air hits my face, smelling of rain and asphalt. It is the sweetest thing I have ever smelled. I pause for 1 second. Just one. I turn my head slightly. I do not look at my parents, who are huddled over the lease agreement like castaways on a raft. I do not look at Ethan, who is standing alone with his plastic key. I look at the building. I look at the wooden beams. I look at the stone fireplace. I look at the structure itself. It is solid. It is standing. It is safe. I saved it. "You are welcome," I whisper to the house. Then I step out. The door swings shut behind me, muffling the music, muffling the sobbing, muffling the 32 years of noise. The parking lot is quiet. My car is parked under a street lamp, a sleek, reliable sedan that I paid for with my own money. I walk to it. My legs feel steady. My hands are not shaking. I get in. I close the door. The silence inside the car is absolute. It is a sanctuary. My phone is sitting in the cup holder. The screen lights up. It buzzes. Psst, psst. Messages are pouring in. From aunts, from cousins, probably from my mother. "Harper, how could you? You need to come back inside. Let's talk about this." I do not pick up the phone. I do not unlock the screen. I flip it over. Face down. I put the key in the ignition. The engine purrs to life. A low, powerful hum. I put the car in reverse. I back out of the spot. I shift into drive. As I pull out of the parking lot, leaving the glowing windows of Maple Crest Manor in my rearview mirror, I realize something. I have left parties early before, usually because I was upset, or tired, or feeling unwanted. It always felt like running away. It always felt like exile. But tonight, as I turn onto the main road and accelerate into the darkness, it feels different. It feels like an amputation of a gangrenous limb. It hurts, yes, but the poison is gone. I am not driving away from my family. I am driving toward my life, and for the first time, the road ahead is completely, beautifully mine. Thank you so much for listening to Harper's story. It was a long journey to get to that parking lot, but she finally made it. I would love to hear what you think. Are you listening to this in your car, at work, or maybe while doing your own boring adult paperwork? Let me know in the comments below where you are tuning in from, and if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the Maya Revenge Stories channel. Hit that like button, And smash the hype button to help this story reach more people who might need a little inspiration to stand up for themselves. See you in the next story.